And joining us right now, as promised, is our friend John Lott, former chief economist at the United States Sentencing Commission, author of the just-released book, At the Brink, Will Obama Push Us Over the Edge? Also, of course, the author of great books like More Guns, Less Crime. Hey, John, how are you?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Always a pleasure. And you know, you have three great pieces. I hope to be able to get to at least two of them, hopefully all three of them. And I want to start with the one at National Review, Obama's racial imbalance. And, you know, to me, you properly point out that, you know, President Obama professes outrage when there's little evidence of bias against blacks, but ignores attacks on whites. And, you know, and we talk about George Zimmerman. You talk about the horrific murder of Christopher Lane in Oklahoma. Tell us what your point of that piece was.
Well, you know, there's a danger to go and claim that racism is occurring, and that is people understandably and justifiably get very angry when racism is taking place. And I fear that there's been a bit of a backlash to some of the claims that have been made about the Trayvon Martin case, when, you know, the president has personalized the case there, talking about himself or, you know, a son of his in the case being the case of Trayvon Martin. And you have others, Al Sharpton and others, who have declared racism occurring there. And the problem is that there have been a number of attacks by blacks on whites where while they're doing the attack, they've made statements like, "This is for Trayvon," and or "This is payback for Trayvon." And
right, and you're talking. There's one in Baltimore, Maryland, where a group of youths actually beat, I think, a Hispanic a man and said, "This is for Trayvon."
Yeah, right. And so you have to be careful that you're really justified in claiming that racism occurred. And yet we continually had claims being made when it was obvious that no racism had occurred. The prosecution in the Zimmerman case didn't even bring up statements that that Zimmerman had done it for racist motivations to go and defend himself against Trayvon Martin. And so, you know, you kind of worry that they're somewhat responsible for exaggerating those claims. They may have done it for political reasons, but there can be side effects that occurred from that.
Right. I mean, it's Obama with his statements on Trayvon. It's Obama with his statements on the Cambridge police. It's a Holder with his statements on the verdict, that it's troubling. It's the prosecutor in the case with her calling Zimmerman the day after the verdict, one word to describe him. She says murderer.
Right.
I mean, this is outrageous stuff.
Right. And you want public officials to be careful when they're doing those things, to make sure that before they use those loaded terms, that there's a real justification for it. Instead, they use them, you know, I can understand why they can gin up the base, but there's a cost to that. And the thing is, Obama could be bringing the country together by just even once in a while being balanced and pointing out when you know, horrible crimes occur against all Americans. Instead, the times when he uses his selective outrage just seem to be occurring when you have one particular type of crime, and that is white on black crime, whether it be the Cambridge case that you mentioned or the Trayvon Martin case.
Right, and John, even in the case of the Lane case in Oklahoma, this became an international incident when the people of Australia, excuse me, government officials urged their citizens not to visit the U.S., and all the president did through a spokesman was say, you know, we feel for the parents, or we feel for the family. It's a tragedy. He did not take the time to address the outrageousness of this and the fact that there had been racial tweets and postings by at least one of the murderers of this young man. So it was a terrible missed opportunity by the president, and you got to feel it's not by accident. Let's move on to a piece you wrote for FoxNews.com just the other day, talking about the president's executive orders targeting guns. This has gone much, under the radar, unnoticed by most of the media on purpose, of course. And now that they've got Syria to obsess with, everything else will get swept under the rug no matter what this president does. So talk about the military weapons he's talking about, being re-imported back into the United States, and what he has actually done here.
Right. Well, again, this is a time when the administration uses these loaded terms that scare people, and the reaction that they get largely depends upon people not understanding how the rules actually work. So, as you say, they talk about military weapons. I mean, geez, who wants to have military weapons being imported, re-imported back into the United States for civilian use? And yet, when you look at it, you realize that they're really just talking about old semi-automatic guns. These guns function absolutely no differently than any other semi-automatic hunting rifle that's there. Fire one bullet per pull of the trigger. These are old M1 Garands that are primarily going to be affected. Other guns are even older, maybe 100 years or so old. They're basically...
they're collector's guns, right, most of these?
That's right. And, as I say, an M1 Garand fires the same bullet as a deer hunting rifle with the same rapidity, doing the same damage. These are guns that were used back in World War II or the Korean War. The only difference with a regular deer hunting rifle is that these are a lot heavier. If anybody's actually held one of these over the last 60 years or so, gun makers have learned how to make guns a little bit lighter.
So why is he doing? Why is he doing this, John? What's the point of this?
Well, I think it's the same reason why.
Is it baby steps to see how much you could get away with, and then incrementally you keep going?
Well, I think it's the same reason why he'll make claims that says that as many as 40% of all gun purchases take place without background checks. I mean, it's simply false things, but it kind of gins up his base, maybe just like the racist type statements that we were talking about before, and. Maybe it is baby steps, but the thing is, this isn't going to have any effect on crime. None of these guns are used in crimes. The administration doesn't even bother to try to even point to a case where one of these guns are used in a crime. Yeah. And, it's just theatrics, and it's to demonize certain things.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I mean, he's the great divider, and unfortunately, we don't have people on the Republican side who are willing to stick up and take to the microphones and say what you wrote about, and say, hey, what the heck's going on here? Why would you ban this? Why would the president do this? Why would he take advantage of his authority and ban this gun, which, like you said, is no different than a deer hunting rifle, which is mostly used by collectors, which is not involved in murders? What's the point, Mr. President? But he gets away with it, except with people like you.
Right. Well, and it's more than just that. It's that he uses this type of particularly scary language to try to inflame the situation when he does these things.
Yeah. Listen, John, busy day with Syria on our end, so I appreciate it. We did not get to the third one. Of course, John Lott, former chief economist at the U.S. Sentencing Commission, author of his just-released book, At the Brink, Will Obama Push Us Over the Edge? Do you have a new one coming out soon?
I do.
Yeah, in a few weeks.
Couple weeks.
What's the name of it?
Well, it's dumbing down the courts.
Okay, we will talk to you as soon as that comes out, day one. Thank you, John.
Great talking to you.
Take care. You too. John Lott, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, when we come back, we're shifting back to Syria, and we'll be joined by our friend, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, former Congressman Pete Hoekstra, right here. And you could weigh in, actually, in the next top of the next hour. We're going to take a bunch of phone calls if you want to weigh in at 855-777-9660, 855-777-9660. Whether you continue to get the showing up, we're going to take phone calls at the top of hour number 3. But right now, we're going to do this on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV and, interestingly enough,